Yeah. Hello, my gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful queen bees. It is your girl Amanda, the buzz artist. On this episode of Amanda Goes Crazy with Paints, we're going to experiment with another type of paint. Arteza decided to grace my front door with metallic acrylic paints. Apparently this is kind of like their new line of acrylic paints that they just came out with. Arteza did send me these metallic acrylic paints for free in exchange for my honest review. I am in no way sponsored by Arteza. I also worked out a deal with Arteza for all my subscribers to get 10% off all their products. Just use coupon code AmandaRinaldi2 at checkout to apply your discount. So be sure to check that out. Ugh. Also, I really need a haircut. I am pretty damn curious to try out this box of metallic acrylic paints, so I couldn't say no. They also sent 2 sets of acrylic pad sheets. It is really nice paper. It's very thick, and it's 11 by 14, bigger than the acrylic pads that I'm actually typically used to. So kind of similar to how I did the Arteza acrylic paint review, I'm going to be judging these paints and these products according to a set list of criteria, including organization, permanence, the way the paint will flow on top of the surface, as well as an opacity test. So with that being said, let's get into the review. So first things first, let's shimmy over to the metallic acrylic colors. These types of metallic paints contain mica in it, which help to create this luminescent finish with your paint, and that's what gives it that metallic color. If we open the box up, wow. And you got some really nice colors here. So if we take these out, okay, I'm officially excited because I freaking love all these paint colors. I think Arteza has a really good reputation of having like extremely bright, beautiful, vibrant pigments. I am definitely a big fan of that. Of course, their organization is just second to none. These are stackable trays and you can just pack so much into a little box. So in terms of organization and just general wow factor, I give Arteza a 5 out of 5 on that one. Good job. The last video I did on Arteza paints, we talked about light permanence. Basically, it's grading your paint and how well it will hold its color over time. And after asking Arteza a million and one questions about their light permanence and what standards they used ASTM standards. And according to the American Standard and Test Measure, or ASTM for short, paints will usually have the scale between 1 to 3. So if we take a look at the paint tubes, you'll notice that there's a plus sign here, which is indicative of the light permanence rating. A plus of 1 is analogous to an ASTM standard of 1, which means that your paints will last you a good few hundred years, which is really, really good. Then there's also other paints in this set that have a plus sign of 3, which means it is analogous to the ASTM 3 standard. This particular paint color will only last us about 15 to 50 years, which is kind of a bummer. However, unlike its acrylic sisters, there's some really great colors that are really great for you to use if you are a professional artist. There are 17 tubes that are ASTM 1 standard, and then there are 10 tubes that have the ASTM 3 standard, typically better for practice rather than actually painting for a commission or for selling work. In terms of light permanence and the amount that you're giving us in relation to the price on this box, I will give them a 3 out of 5. Alright, so now that we've investigated the organization and light permanence, let's actually go ahead and do a color swatch and opacity test. So I drew up a piece of paper with some lines on it to test our colors onto. Okay, so here are some observations that I'm making. In terms of opacity, everything seems to be checking out. Whatever the label says, it actually will match up with the opacity test that I did. So when it comes to opacity and the ratings on the tube itself, I give it a 5 out of 5. Now, in terms of color swatches, instead of the colors drying darker than the actual swatch in the tube, the colors all pretty much dried lighter. I would say that kind of makes sense because the swatch itself does not contain any mica, which is what that refractive quality of metallic paint is, thereby making it appear shinier. In general, I saw that the paints actually dried lighter than their actual swatch. So what I always recommend anybody to do when they get any brand new set of paint is to do a color swatch test, see how the colors dry, and then use your best judgment on which paints you would like to use. In terms of the color swatches, I would give that a 3 out of 5. One other thing I wanted to point out, the actual metallic nature of these paints. They are pretty nice and shiny. If I were to put them in any angle of the light, it really nicely catches. So there is a metallic-y look to these paints. I would probably give it a 4 out of 5. Not bad, Arteza. So now that I've done all the preliminary tests of just playing around with the paint elements themselves, I want to actually go ahead and paint a picture on top of the acrylic pad sheets that Arteza provided for me to test out as well. So without further ado, let's get on with the test.
Hey everybody, your handy dandy voiceover here speaking. So in general, when I looked at these colors and applied them to the acrylic paper, I really enjoyed how the paint flowed on top of this paper. And let me tell you, you'll notice that the acrylic paper itself is not taped down to the desk, and this is done on purpose. I wanted to see how much it would buckle under the use of water and paint, and I've got to say, throughout this entire painting, there was very little buckling. So I am extremely impressed with these acrylic papers. And next, you also notice that I am using a kind of a blend technique with several of the acrylic colors here. And I wanted to just test out the blendability of these paint metallics, as well as see how they kind of flowed well together. And I have to say, I have a big thumbs up with these guys because it is so much fun to blend these two colors together, and I really did enjoy the entire process. And plus, I tested the white pearl paint on top of the black acrylic paint that I laid down earlier, and I really love the result. So all in all, I'm kind of impressed with these guys. And hey, you know what? A girl gotta love her glitter and shine. It's so shiny. Oh my gosh. Glistening glamour. Ooh, okay, I'll shut up now.
Just to round out my thoughts and give my overall impressions of using the Arteza metallic paints, here are some things that I observed. One, when it comes to their organization, Arteza is second to none. It's clean, it's organized, portable, easy to store. I am in love with the way Arteza just organizes their paints in general. When it comes to the actual pigments, they are bright, they are vibrant, and they're just so pretty to look at and to play around with. I'm a huge fan of the texture. They're kind of like the viscosity of a toothpaste, but slightly runnier than that. It's not a soft body paint where it's all liquid. It's not a heavy body. It's kind of like a nice in-between. So it's really good to go and play around with this paint and to mix with it and to blend with it. In terms of light permanence, these metallic paints have some good players in them. A little under half of the tube colors that were provided in the 36 color set are actually considered ASTM I standard for light permanence, meaning that those colors will last you for hundreds and hundreds of years, which is awesome. It's really good if you're a professional painter. But then there are about 10 paint tubes that are ASTM III standard, meaning they'll last about 15 to 50 years. Those types of paints are really good if you want to practice, if you want to journal, or if you want to use it for an underpainting and then you apply another nice ASTM I standard paint on top. When it comes to their opacity ratings on the tube, everything all checks out. They are exactly what they say they are, which is very good. It's verifying that they are telling the truth. And the most important thing is flow and usability, which I actually had a very fun time using these metallic paints when I was painting these butterflies. In fact, I felt that the paint was very flowy, and on top of this acrylic paper, let's talk about the acrylic paper for a second. I was very impressed with the quality of their acrylic pads. I noticed that I had very little to no buckling when I actually applied paint on top of the paper itself. Usually with the previous acrylic pads that I've used, I need to tape them all down on the edges so that they don't end up wrinkling upwards, which I think is really cool and is a sign for me that they are of really good quality. And not only that, the paints flowed so well on top of this acrylic pad. I had the whole gambit of possibility with my brush strokes, and this acrylic pad was making it very easy for me to do that. In fact, I even drew on top of the acrylic pad before I laid down my color, and that in and of itself was very easy and very quick to do, which if ever you've seen me draw on actual canvas before, it is not the easiest thing to do, but to do it on these sheets was a breeze and I absolutely loved it. These sheets are acid free, so they will not yellow over time, and also they're glue bound, so to remove them is literally the easiest thing ever. I'm in love with these pads, I really am. Putting all this together, blending everything, and seeing all the colors kind of play with one another, I really did have a fun time playing with these paints. The drying time is a little on the fast side, which means if you're trying to blend, you gotta work fast. But that's not always a bad thing, especially if you're learning. All in all, looking at everything and analyzing everything according to my criteria, based on the price point, I would say that these metallic paints and these acrylic pads are phenomenal, especially the fact that some of them have an ASTM I standard, which means that they're professional grade. You can use them for paintings that are commissioned or for paid work. I think that's a really good investment of your money, and especially for the price point that they're asking for these metallic paints, I think it's a really good one. And even though the metallic paint itself wasn't as shiny as I would have liked it, I did notice that the more layers I added of that metallic paint, the more vibrant and shiny it did get. Now with that being said, when adding metallic paint, it's best to add it on lighter surfaces because that's where the shine will really pop through. I did do an experiment where I painted some metallic swatches on top of a black surface versus on top of an actual white surface, and the results look very different. The ones that were on the black surface appeared more muddy, more rusted looking colors versus the ones that were painted on a light surface were actually the colors on the swatches themselves. That is my review. I give them a big thumbs up. I think they're really fantastic for you to use both as a beginner and as a professional artist. If you, my queen bees, enjoyed this video and review, please be sure to give this video a like and to subscribe to my channel. Hit that like button, you know what to do, so that you can see more reviews, tutorials, drawings, and general art tomfoolery from me to you in the future. And remember everybody, love yourselves and always have fun with your art. See you all next time. Bye!